right. Do you all see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yep,
You see it?
I see it.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Well then, welcome everybody to the Student Needs and Wellbeing Survey Spring Summer Webinar. This webinar will be led by myself, Dr. Steve Rios, Senior Director of the Florida Department of Children and Families Positive Pathways Program, and Dr. Althea Blake, who leads the RISE program for young people from foster care and homeless backgrounds at St. Petersburg College. And RISE stands for what, Dr. Blake?
Road to Independence, Success, and Excellence.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm very happy to have Dr. Blake's work with me in developing this webinar and of course in sharing it. So I will go ahead and start. And like I mentioned earlier, this is scheduled for half an hour, or I'm sorry, an hour and a half. And the reason that we've scheduled it for an hour and a half is so that you can have opportunities to talk and to share about what you do in your community to meet some of the needs that are will be highlighted today. I literally put the word, question and answer several times throughout the session so that people won't feel inhibited to take that opportunity and share. We do have an hour and a half. You can leave anytime you like, no problem, but we do have that amount of time so that we can really have a give and take about these important topics. And just so you know, I may forget to say it, this survey is still open, and we very much would be open to having you take the link and send it out to your students to see how their results might be similar to or different from the results of other students. We have that opportunity to give you a separate link so that we'll be able to tell, what your students are saying. Okay. All right, so let me just start by talking about the purpose, the sample, and the timeline. Positive Pathways is a program that has really tried to understand the young people that we serve. And what that means is that we have consistently, during the last couple of years, made an effort to ask students how they're doing. The email that goes out to them basically says, we here at Positive Pathways, Educate Tomorrow, and the colleagues who work with us around the state are very interested to find out how you're doing during these difficult times. And we really have seen a progression of how students are doing and feeling, and we're going to cover some of that today. In other words, since we have done 4 of these surveys, we're going to be able to share a little bit about how the opinions of the students have changed over the course of the past couple of years as we've dealt with this, as they have dealt with this COVID crisis. Okay. So this is the first time, however, that well-being questions have been added to the survey. They've been added because there's a real shift around the country, as you can imagine, to understanding how people are doing. Because a lot of people are not doing good, especially after 2.5 years, almost 3 years of this challenging time that we're in. So we were able to get 93 students to answer the survey, and some of them were not in school, and some of them were in high school. So what we've done is we decided that for this session, we're going to focus on the 81 students who are in school, in college, and the university. And this survey was open from May until, like I said, now, August. It's still open and will be open for those of you who want to share it with your students. Okay. Althea, did you want to take this?
The slide basically just shows what the population of respondents looks like. As Dr. Rios mentioned, most of the respondents are in college and university. And we do have some who are not in school and some who are in high school, assuming that the high school students are those who are in dual enrollment. And
So what we did here was focus in on those students from the university and the college and show you that these students are from a wide variety of organizations. I will say the majority, though, are in that South, Florida area. We do have students from the Tampa St. Pete area and the RISE program, but we're looking for more students from around the state to join us. You want to go from there, Dr. Blake?
yes, the majority of students that answered the survey are younger than 25. There are only 10 who are 25 or older, but we have to keep in mind that those who are using the DCF tuition and fee waiver are only able to use it up to age 28. So that explains why we have such a relatively low number of those who are 25 or older. But having the older population does give us a different insight, as their needs may be different than those who are coming close to being out of high school or aging out.
One of the first things that we wanted to ask is how is the COVID crisis continuing to impact them, right? And this is the first opportunity that we have now during the seminar to compare current feelings and thoughts, opinions with past survey results. And so as you can see there on the left, I've placed the covers of all three of the past survey result reports and webinars that you have access to. And you have access to that by going to positivepathwaysflorida.org, positivepathwaysflorida.org. And under the About, there's actually two links under there. One says surveys and one says webinars. So since these are webinars based on surveys, you can get these past reports through any of those links. As you can see here, we show you the results of what students say, how anxious they are in general about the COVID pandemic. And you can see the changes. Even though, some arrows are pointing up and some are pointing down, they're all green in terms of, except one, because, we have a higher number of students who are not very anxious, right? And a lower number of students who are somewhat anxious. So it's kind of arbitrary in terms of the, the arrows, I think, but I think it shows when 22% of students were very anxious last year, in January, and now only 16% are. So that is, that's a good sign. However, we do see a red arrow. So last year, this time in 2021, 0% of the students indicated that they were so anxious that they would like help to deal with their anxiety. And this year, 3%. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And for this reason, we're gonna show, emphasize information related to mental health. And I've actually invited another special guest, Sandra Obas with Miami-Dade College, to have a pre-look at some of these results so that she can share with us her thoughts about that as well. Okay, and so one of the main questions that we asked the students then was about their priorities. As you can see here, we have some high numbers of what students' priorities are. Since this is the Positive Pathways Network, and as Dr. Blake, reminded me yesterday, these students are the students who are involved with us enough to answer the survey. We see perhaps, that reflected in these results. Did you want to add anything to this, Dr. Blake?
No, you you said what I already said yesterday. That it's likely that the students who are the concerns and priorities of the students who responded to the survey reflect the type of student who would answer the survey. So that's something that we keep in mind when we're analyzing this. It may not be reflective of other students who may not have a campus-based program or who may not have career to positive pathways. So that's just something to keep in mind when we're looking at these results, that we can't generalize this to all students from foster care or who have aged on foster care involved in the system.
Exactly. It's a very good point. And that's another reason why I'm really interested in getting results from folks in other parts of the state who may not have an intensity of interaction with campus-based support folks. So as you can see, 97% of the students said that their priority is their education, which is wonderful. And look at the percent of students who say that their priority is staying healthy. What I'm going to do, instead of just sharing these numbers by themselves, I'm going to go ahead and put them into context. As you can see here, we have the priorities compared to the percent of students who indicated that these were their priorities in spring of 20 and spring of 2021. You can see how the numbers have changed, sometimes surprisingly so. Education went from 89% 2 years ago to 97% last year and stayed at 97%, which is very encouraging. Staying healthy went from 81% to 95% last year, and again, stayed very high at 96%. So that's a pretty important jump. And look at this. I was particularly encouraged by this, planning for education. Because, maybe some of these are the same students who answered 2 years ago, and only 62 of them were planning for graduation. And then it went up to 78, and now 88. So to me, that's pretty encouraging. The plan for next steps, we didn't ask in the previous years. So, but it's kind of similar to planning for graduation. Finding work, interestingly, went down from 79% to it went up. First, it went down from 78 to 69, which was, the beginning, like the middle of the epidemic. And then it went back up to 79%. So maybe, we know that there were a lot of places that were just closed and weren't hiring. So then it went up to 79%, which probably leads to our very low, our low unemployment rate. Okay. But look at this one, finding a place to live. As things are getting more challenging with rent, I know that rents are going up in a lot of places, and the percent of our young people who are looking for a place to live is consistently increasing. 3 years in a row, 10% every year. So 56% of the 100 or so students have a priority of finding a place to live. I look forward to hearing, your thoughts about that. Finding enough food to eat, that went up from 48% to 52%. Can you imagine? More than half of the students are food insecure. And the number of students who are supporting a family member was high at the beginning of the pandemic, dropped to 40%, and then went back up to 49%. So this is our first Q&A opportunity. Covered a lot of information already. And like I said, we are recording. I would be very interested to hear your thoughts already about the information that I've shared with you, that we've shared with you. So feel free. This is open mic time.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandra Obas, Educate Tomorrow college coach at Miami-Dade College. And some things that I've realized that I found very interesting was some of the numbers. So we say right now, those seeking education as a priority has increased from 89% 2 years ago to 97%. And finding a place to live has increased from 36% to 45%. So even though there is that housing crisis, because that's what it is when our students can't find a safe, stable, and healthy environment to live in that's affordable, they're still seeking to better themselves through their education. And it even surpassed seeking employment. And what I realized with that, at least my take on that, was with the pandemic, I feel like students are coming to the realization that more opportunities are created through knowledge, and increasing, your knowledge base, getting those degrees, getting those certifications are making you more marketable, which will in turn provide greater opportunities for our youth in the future. So I think instead of having that short-term focus of maybe just finding employment in the moment, they're having more of a long-term perspective, which is why they want to further their education so that way they can find and maintain stable and affordable housing.
That's wonderful. That's a great juxtaposition of those two statistics. Thank you so much, Sandra. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions, comments, statements about what you've seen so far? Does this resonate with you? Are you seeing this with your own students?
Hi, this is Rebecca Collins with the Falcon Hope Center at Daytona State College. I just wanted to definitely agree with, at least what we're experiencing with our students, what I'm seeing on the presentation. Food and snacks tends to be one of the highest services that we provide to our DCF students, our home students. And also our students too are feeling the effects of the rental. I call it a crisis right now. It's very difficult to find housing in our area, and specifically affordable housing. We're seeing a lot of luxury apartments coming to Daytona Beach. So it's difficult, when you're trying to help a student. You want them to, reach their goals, have all of their basic needs met. But then there's only so much that I can do. So it's been challenging for us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Collins. I heard that from a couple of people over the past couple of weeks. I think even Dr. Blake, you were one of them, right? He was saying about the housing.
Yeah, right now it's one of the biggest challenges, and it's the area where a lot of us feel the most hopeless because we can't go out and build more apartments. So yeah, it's just a really challenging situation. A lot of what we do at St. Petersburg College is find ways to at least help students feel comfortable in the situation that they're in now. And like I told Dr. Rios, is my motto is one less thing to worry about. And even just yesterday, we had a student who came in and she's on the streets, and Dr. Kent, my direct supervisor, the director of retention services, she's on the call. She actually had the great idea of getting yoga mats. And the student was just so grateful. I wasn't able to get connect her with housing, but I was able to give her just a yoga mat so she can feel more comfortable sleeping where she was sleeping. So yeah, it's a really sad situation, and I'm hoping that some bigger, higher powers come in to intervene, because it's sad that a lot of these students are pursuing education so that they can get out of poverty and be in better situations. But the way it is being in college, when you have to choose between tuition and rent, it makes it almost impossible. They get stuck in the cycle. So
Steve, could you pull up that last slide with all the statistics again? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Steve, it's Shay.
Hey, Shay.
Hey, I know food stamps or lack thereof continues to be an issue, and it's very difficult for our youth to connect with the food stamp interviewers or the ones that make the decisions when they're denied. I don't know what that solution will be, because I know that department's probably overworked and understaffed. But approval of food stamps seems to be an issue, even though they should, as a foster care student, have that caveat that they should be able to receive them. And then on the housing piece, just make sure you're connected with your local continuums of care, or you have a contact person, especially for the ones that are literally homeless. They can do intakes. I mean, it doesn't mean they're going to find housing, but it gives them one more avenue to help pursue housing and possibly have funding attached if they find the housing.
Thank you, Shay.
To add to that, we have here in St. Petersburg, our Homeless Leadership Alliance is our continuum of care. And recently St. Petersburg College joined the continuum of care. And as a member, we are able to have access to grants that we otherwise would not have access to, and other resources. And we also have a say in what's being done towards housing prevention. So not only reaching out to your continuum of care, trying to be involved and be a part of it, because you get very valuable connections and you find out about information that you may not have otherwise learned about.
Thank you. Thank you. I see Phil Scarpelli. Phil, would you like to say something?
Yes, good morning. I wanted to respond to Shay, being very, very familiar with the structure and personnel at the Department of Children and Families. Shay, if you go to the Department of Children and Families website and go by circuit, and if you can find your county within that circuit, each circuit has a designated what do they call it? CCDA, that would be a community development administrator. That person, it would be a wonderful contact to talk about all of the resources that the department provides, to include cash assistance, Medicaid enrollment, and food stamps. And I think that was one of the three categories, Steve, that she was talking about. It correct? It was it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and secondly, they have community storefronts, they call them, where it would be great to have a point of contact, make a relationship with someone there, so that when our youth are struggling with enrollment in any one of the subsidy programs, that you have that point of contact. They will take on our youth as a priority. You know, under the new secretary, I don't mean to get long-winded, Steve, forgive me, but under the new secretary, the partnership between the department's evolving role, not being these are her words, not being a reactionary organization, but being a proactive organization, working with people who are in need of resources, is one of her primary goals. And so I would again say, go to their website, find the CCDA, that's the Community Development Administrator name, and they have a contact number. Build a rapport with that individual, talk to them about their local storefronts and the availability of making contact, so that we can give our young people a place, a person, and or a number to call when they're struggling. I used to work for the department years ago. I had an elderly grandmother I was caring for, and I had to enroll her in Medicaid. It wasn't easy, and I worked for the department, so I needed a contact myself to understand how to navigate the enrollment process. I hope that helped, Shay.
Thank you. And I mean, as a community partner, we've also been given a QR code, which is great now when we need it. I just wish our kids weren't being denied from the start, which then means we have to backtrack and redo things, and we're not.
Yeah.
There's a piece missing where they shouldn't be denied and they're being denied. And I think it's just because there's just been so much turnover, et cetera.
There's also some of the campuses do have, and you know, maybe Sandra, you can mention the single stop, right? And how that helps. Could you just tell a bit about single stop and how that helps with the food stamps?
Yes, so the single stop office at Miami-Dade College is a one-stop shop of services for our youth. They come and they receive pretty much a slew of resources. So they can receive support with the application for SNAP benefits. There's actually someone from DCF that is assigned to Miami-Dade College campus, actually physically on the campus. So it makes it a lot easier for students to cut through that red tape, and they can go to that individual directly to help them with their application, to provide the documentation. If they're missing any information, she's able to connect with them directly and pretty much expedite the food assistance process. So having someone from the department directly on the college campus has been truly beneficial, and that's through the single stop department.
And I think some other communities, thank you, Sandra. Some other communities have that similar setup, but not on a campus, like Flight Center here in Broward County. They put folks who are serving students in those different capacities together on an off-site place. Okay. All right. At this time, we're going to thank you so much for taking the opportunity to share and to participate. I would like to move back to our session now with Dr. Blake.
Okay, so for this slide, so a little backstory. The way that I found out about Educate Tomorrow is actually through an organization called Florida College Access Network. And FCAN introduced me to a concept called, oh my gosh, collective impact, sorry, introduced me to the concept of collective impact. And I think that that's what makes positive pathways so powerful. The fact that we have people who are not just educators, but we have people who work in the child welfare system, people who work in social services, educators, volunteers. So what makes us so powerful is that as a network, we seem to all genuinely understand that the student is more than a student, and we take into account everything that impacts them and their ability to be successful. So in the survey, they asked about basic life needs, not just educational needs. And I took the responses and I put them in order of where they fit in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I pinpointed the responses that had the most need, which was 30% or above. So when we look at the bottom in terms of physiological needs, as we talked about just seconds ago, is the need for housing and shelter. So physiological needs refers to really just our basic necessities as not, I don't want to say animals, but as living
humans.
as humans, yeah. So housing, shelter, household supplies. And what I would like all of you to do while I go through the list is in the chat, or we can do it after. You can just say what city you are in and who's your go-to when you have a student who has a need in this area. Okay, so I'll tell you mine. So for housing and shelter, my go-to is the Homeless Leadership Alliance. And what I do is connect people to their housing coordinator. In terms of household supplies and toiletries, we have Cetera Inc., which is a nonprofit, Dr. Jamie Bennett, who's the other regional point of contact. She is someone who I can go to for this. And also we do have lots of donations. Like I mentioned, retention services where I work, we have mats, we have hygiene products, and there's lots of resources that are on campus too. So if you can all go in the chat and just say what your go-to is, that would be very helpful, especially for people who are in the same region as you who may not know about that resource. So in terms of safety and needs, that the biggest response we got, basically every response had to do with money. That's the security that people are looking for right now, over 52%. So that had the highest need. For love and belonging and esteem, I put emotional stability because it can kind of fall into both, because having a feeling of love and belonging can impact your emotional stability, but also your emotional stability can impact the way that you believe in yourself and how you can move forward. And then there's study skills, which is something that we can really rely on the campus resources to use, which is what we do. And then on the top, self-actualization. So life skills and life management is something that a lot of the students mention that is something that they need help with. Dr. Do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. Does anyone want to add anything? Or any comments? Okay. You can go to the next slide. Okay. So specifically for the students who are enrolled in post-secondary education, we focus on what they need as a student. So the top two, like I mentioned before, which is going to be a recurring theme throughout the presentation, is money, paying for books and finding funding to continue school. So this was kind of surprising to me until I thought about it, the finding funding to continue school, because our students have the DCF waivers, so their tuition's covered and their fees, but there's a lot more that goes into that. And especially with COVID, a lot of our students had to withdraw from classes, or they simply didn't pass classes, which impacted what we call their satisfactory academic progress, which has to do with their pace and their projected completion. If students do not meet satisfactory academic progress, they are no longer eligible for any additional financial aid. So, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the people who are coming, like having too many people, sorry. So a lot of our students, even though they do have the waiver, they lose their additional funds. So they have that added pressure. And then that's obviously tied to paying for textbooks. So like I mentioned here in Pinellas, we do have Cetera Inc. that has a textbook fund, but our associate provost at our college, and we do have emergency funds, I have also given thousands of dollars to my students to help pay for textbooks. I can't even think of an instance where there was a student who had a textbook and the college allowed them to fall through the cracks. So that's something that I urge people who work at the college campuses to do, is to have a connection with your financial aid department and leadership and advocate for students, because if no one asks, there's lots of things that you won't get. So the next three were concentration, study skills, and test taking skills. So the concentration could be also tied obviously to what's going on. There's a lot of distractions right now in terms of all the things on the last slide that students have to be concerned with. It's hard to concentrate in school when you're thinking about where your next meal is coming from or where you're going to sleep at night. So paying attention to students' other needs and also connecting them to mental health services is something that can trickle down and help with concentration. And study skills and test taking skills, that's about connecting with your on-campus resources, your learning resources. There's even YouTube videos that you can refer students to if they can't make it to campus. So yeah, so these are the most cited or most indicated needs of students who are currently in college. Does anyone have any questions or anything to add? Dr. Rios, it's your turn again.
One thing I'd like to add to it, Dr. Blake. So this slide right here, where it says, do you feel that you are in need for mental health services? So there is a slight, contradiction here, where the first slide only mentioned, I believe, 3% were so anxious that they wanted to seek services, whereas here is specifying that about 43%, are seeking services. So sometimes I feel like students may not know 100% if, what direction they want to move in with the mental health services, or don't know how to ask for help. Saying it, I guess, outright is maybe taboo for them, but there is a clear need that there are students who need mental health support, being that they've been isolated or, in their homes or wherever they are, for the past few years, and things have been very unstable for them. I think this is their way of saying they need the help, but don't know exactly how to point out that discretion that I saw there. And just to say, we do know our students need the support. It's just trying to get them to come out and say it and make it easy for them to seek the services in a way where it's not a multiple step process. They have one point of contact where they can go to receive the therapeutic service. And if that's something that's beneficial for them, that they see as beneficial, they can continue to maintain those services, whether on campus or in the community.
Yeah, when I actually was taking notes on paper about this, when I wrote this slide, there's a word that I learned from like Gen Z, like cap, which means they're not being honest. So I wrote that when I put down those numbers, I said cap. I was like, this is not really reflective of what they need. And Dr. Rios and I talked in length about why we think there's that discrepancy. Is it an issue of pride? Is it an issue of not knowing where to find the resources? Or is it an issue of not realizing that what they're experiencing is a mental health issue, such as concentration? That's even Dr. Rios and I weren't really sure where to put concentration, because it could be mental health, it could be something else. So that is something. So educating students on mental health is a big deal. And that's actually, I would say, I mentioned housing before, but to be honest, I would say that mental health is the biggest barrier that I face working with students, because it's an invisible barrier. And there's lots of times where I'm throwing resources at them and they're bouncing off of this invisible barrier. So being able to connect them to mental health resources not only makes it easier for them, it makes it easier for the people who want to support them. So those are really good points, Sandra. Thank you so much.
And one thing else, the structure of this survey is well crafted, because asking the same question in multiple ways is the way you get the honest truth. Because when you keep asking them the same question, but just using different words to see where they truly are mentally, you get a more accurate response than if you would have just stopped at, how anxious are you? And you would have had that 3%, you would have lost the other 40% that actually says, hey, I need the service.
Yeah, I agree.
If the students sign up, don't sign up, is there a certain stigma that they're feeling because they're signing up for mental health services?
Isn't it discreet? How is it handled?
It is very discreet. So at least I can speak for Miami-Dade College. It is through the single stop department. And once the student, specifies that they are seeking services, we connect them to the mental health therapist on campus for the intake assessment. It is in a private office. And then as they come in, there are no other students in that area that will see them coming in and out. So there is an increased level of privacy that is given to the students, one, for HIPAA purposes to make sure we're in compliant with that. And two, for the, I guess for the student themselves, so they don't feel stigmatized by coming in for services. And as they come in for the services, the therapist makes it a calming environment for them. So it doesn't feel so, out of the box that they're coming to seek services.
Does it go in their permanent records that they're seeking services?
Like their educational records that they're receiving services? No.
Okay.
At St. Petersburg College, we have a partnership with Mantra Health or Mantra Health. So our students actually are given 5 free telehealth appointments. So it's totally something that they do off campus. So there's no stigma from other people, but with people who are struggling with mental health, from my understanding, I'm not an expert, there can be a stigma within yourself having to admit that you need that help. And that can be something that's deterring to people to seek mental health, just admitting to yourself that you need mental health treatment. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. Technology has gotten so sophisticated that the Survey Monkey itself provides insight into, like, when a lot of people have written responses. And one of our surveys, not this one, but in the past, we asked, what would prevent you from seeking tutoring support? And so many answers were given, and Survey Monkey did what is called a sentiment analysis, where they go through the answers and they highlight what they think this is. And I saw, just briefly looking at it, pride and embarrassment, pride and embarrassment, pride and embarrassment. So it was fascinating that even our computers can look at answers written by students and understand that is that, like Dr. Blake said, that internal stigma, not that somebody else is, necessarily going to judge them, but they themselves are judging themselves. And also look at the, look, yes, no, and maybe. Sandra, what do you think about the fact that 43% said maybe? What does that mean? Do you feel that you need mental health services? Maybe.
They could be indecisive, or they just may not want to admit it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so anybody around the state, so many of you are with us and we're so grateful. Please give us some insight about how things are done on your campus for any of these topics that we've talked about so far. Mental health, housing, or in your community, housing, the food stamp issue. Any thoughts from anywhere around the state?
Dr. Rios, is there a representative from Flight on the call? Because I saw a presentation from Flight a year ago, and it really was impressive to me what they've done in order to get housing for 100% of the youth that they serve.
Yeah, no, my main contact is literally in your community with
Oh yeah, you
a
said
number
that.
of students from Handy
Oh yeah, oh, sorry.
on a college tour.
Okay.
But if people don't want to speak up, please feel free to type in the chat who you are and what you're doing in your community to address any of these concerns. We have some wonderful, folks online. We have state level leaders with us as well. I can see by looking at all the names who, oversee a lot of activity at the state level, both from the Department of Children and Families, as well as from our college system, Department of Education. So I'm sure that they would be interested as well in hearing what we're doing around the state.
Someone asked, Dr. Blake asked me a question, how so? I guess with the maybe. So what I would say for that is what I've experienced, especially being a mental health professional, is when working with students, a lot of them come from having those barriers related to, like, cultural implications. So their background, the family structure, how a lot of folks oftentimes do not go out to seek counseling because of their cultural, background that says what happens in the home stays within the home. So having that level of cultural competence, having therapists who are competent in that area and understand the different cultures, understanding that sometimes maybe a family session may be needed, especially if you're dealing with maybe a Hispanic family who's very tight knit with her family, or understanding that if you're working with a youth from Indian, from like Native American background, may not want to look you directly in the eye, especially if you're a male, and that they work better with a female therapist. So just understanding those different cultural aspects also makes a difference with if you're going to get your students to actually show up and continue to maintain their sessions. If there's not a level of comfort and confidence in that therapist, they're not going to continue. So having a varied selection pool of therapists is also very important, because a lot of people go to who they feel they relate to more. And that's what I've noticed a lot when it comes to students or just anyone in general seeking therapy services.
Yeah, and actually the other Sandra mentioned the same thing. Sandra said, I have several students whose parents are a huge factor in the mental health issues. So culture definitely does play a role in that.
Thank you so much. I just saw that Broward College said that Broward College received a grant from Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration called GLS, Campus Suicide Prevention Grant, and we are working with this grant to reduce the stigma and improve the help-seeking, the services for the help-seeking behaviors. Thank you for that. Oh, she says we've expanded our student counseling hours and increased our diversity in our therapists in the department. So that responds directly to what you just said, Sandra. And James Minter with Selfless Love, I also think a lot of the young people do not understand how to access services through their insurance and are frustrated with the process. I think that makes a lot of sense. I have tried in the past, and I will try again to get Sunshine Health to do a presentation to the Positive Pathways Network. If any of you have support, connect with them, please. Thank you. James says he has a connection. Let's work together on getting that presentation. I agree with you. There are a lot of telehealth services, he says. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say I could send you their training person.
Okay, great. Here, someone else, Olivia Cherry, Sarasota, my agency, Reach Schoolhouse Link helps students with getting supplies, uniforms, transportation to and from school. I help kids with FAFSA and college applications, as well as applying for food stamps, Medicaid. We have an in-house therapist who works with our students, unaccompanied homeless youth. Thank you so much for that. I was especially going to make an effort to ask our community, our community members to answer the question. So thank you for that. And here's Michael Litchfield with Florida State College at Jacksonville, the Educate Tomorrow program there. We utilize Single Stop to assist with SNAP referrals. We have the Student Assistance Program to link students to mental health resources in our area. Housing is particularly tough in the Northeast region. For this one, we have been creative, but almost all resources here are on a wait list. Thank you so much, Mike. Oh, and Daytona Beach, we typically refer students to our counseling department. We also plan to offer mental health workshops this semester. We also have
that it's free. So that's something that we mentioned to them, because some of the concerns that we hear oftentimes is it's too expensive and we can't afford to pay for services. But we tell them, as an enrolled student, you get 10 sessions completely covered, and you can do it in person or conduct those sessions via telehealth virtually. So it's completely up to them. So letting them know that it is very easy, it's already included in their tuition. That's something else that is an encouraging factor for the students that allows them to come and seek services more often.
Thank you.
Mercedes said, does anyone know whether the Affordable Care Act may be an option for these students? Because from my understanding as DC former foster kids, they automatically have some type of medical insurance, like Dr. Rios mentioned Sunshine Health. And when I speak to my students, they say they have medical insurance, but how do they, what's the process of getting it?
This is JR Mentor from Selfless Love. Any young person that's aged out is going to have guaranteed health insurance, and they will for same child welfare specialty plan until they reach the age of 21. So right before 21, if they've aged out of foster care, they just need to reapply, but they'll be guaranteed Medicaid until the age of 26.
Okay.
So that, the only time that would be different is, their status when they reach the age of 18, whether they were adopted or placed with a relative, that changes things a little bit. But almost everyone should have health insurance until they're at least 21, but a good majority of these young people until the age of 26, regardless of their income.
And how does the Sunshine Health work? What is it that they provide for our students?
So Sunshine Health, they provide everything. So the one thing is a lot of young people, I don't think, know how to access their insurance. Just in my experience, in my history, going over it with them, a lot of the times they're not really open maybe to engaging with mental health services. So it's kind of in one ear, out the other. So it's when you get them and they're really interested and you can explain how to engage with it, I think it sticks. And then through Sunshine, which is what a majority of, the people in at least Northeast region have, they have telehealth services that all got bumped up a lot through COVID. So I think sometimes that's the best way to engage, because it is hard to find mental health providers that, have readily available appointments without more intrusive intake processes.
Yeah.
And so, Dr. Rios, I sent you Sarah's email.
Okay.
She's the supervisor on. She is the supervisor of. Oh God, what are their names? The people that are responsible for the transition planning with Sunshine Health and all that.
Great.
So she's their supervisor, and I talked to her. She's really down for doing trainings, whatever. So she's probably a good point of contact.
Excellent. Thank you. I just think that they're, especially, when you set up to age 26, and I know that our students work with students, over 25, you saw that even the results of today's, had a certain percentage over 25, that there's really needs to be a much more understanding about Sunshine Health and how students can access it among our college coaches.
Yeah, and they can create Sunshine Health accounts, and there's a bunch of different things they qualify for. So a lot of it is just making sure, I think almost everybody that interacts with them has some level of training on how to guide them through it. So yeah, Sarah should be able to help connect the dots, because it's not, it's like any other insurance. For us, it's hard to access some services too. It takes a bit of work. But some of these young people get frustrated so quickly, and they're like, well, I was open to it, but I don't have time for this, and I think they I've seen when I was working with FSCJ closely, when I was at FSS, is that unfortunately they weren't open to it until it was like that wall had already been hit, and performance for that semester was already kind of not going to be able to be fixed. So staying ahead of it is the key.
Right, definitely. All right, good. Well, we move to the next slide. Dr. Blake has worked with me on this one as well. As you can see, overall, how satisfied are you with the following areas of your life? What we did was, there was a lot of information, so we just tried to boil it down here and see that they're, what are they very and completely satisfied with? We combine those results, and somewhat not at all satisfied, we combine those results. And let me tell you, I am very encouraged, and you all should be as well, that my education is at the very top. and 50%. I mean, the next one is 39%. So as a member of the Positive Pathways Network, I can say all of you should be so proud of this, because I think that around the country, a lot of people may be frustrated by their education, don't have the kind of support that's provided by you all. And not just, people on campus, but the community people are wonderful in terms of helping to help the students succeed educationally as well. So I think it says a lot that the highest percentage is, my education. And then you can see, go ahead, Dr. Blake. Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, especially because of how Sandra Obis alluded to the trickle-down effect of having a strong education. So out of all of these things, my education is really the thing that we have the biggest hand in. So the fact that we were setting them up in that area would really eventually can trickle down to the rest of the area. So I was just piggybacking off of what you said about how that's a great accomplishment. And it has very strong long-term effects in terms of taking care of the right side of the screen eventually.
Exactly. And so I think it says a lot also. And Sandra, please, and Jamie as well, Dr. Bennett, now that you're on, please feel free to say what you think. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to say anything else about this slide. I'm going to let the wonderful folks on this call react and respond to this slide.
I wanted to add something though about my family, because this is something else Dr. Rios and I basically spoke all day yesterday about this PowerPoint. My family being something that they're very completely satisfied with. And considering that we are working with youth who came from kind of tumultuous families, I thought that was interesting that they were very completely satisfied. And when we talk about road to independence, success, and excellence, I think about the life that they're building past aging out. And I realized that perhaps our students are talking about the families that they are building now after aging out, using the resources they have. And a lot of my students have mentioned that their priority is making sure that their children have a better life than they had. So I thought that was very interesting that my family became one of the things that they're most happiest with.
Yeah, but still it didn't hit anywhere near 50%. In fact,
Yeah.
none of them did. None of these things did. And I think that's pretty telling, especially when you look on the other side. But I said I wasn't going to say anything else about this slide.
I have something to say.
Yes, Sandra.
Yes. So yes, with my education being 50%, another reason I can say has alluded to this is because my education, when you have that campus-based support, everything else is kind of tied into it because of the fact that we aim to have that holistic approach. Just like Educate Tomorrow, we provide emergency funding for the youth, and they find that when they're enrolled. Connection to housing resources, they find that when they're students, and academic support. So it's a well-rounded view. So once they're enrolled in school, they're actively engaged, they're getting that education piece, but so much more than just education alone that's helping them in their day-to-day living. And I think that's why my education was so high, because family can be encompassed in that. Relationships that they build can be encompassed in that. Their happiness, a lot of times they find joy in coming to speak to the college coaches on campus because they don't have that familial support structure at home. So those different things, I think they find all in that one campus atmosphere.
I was looking down when you were speaking. I wasn't being rude. I was looking for a text message I got from a student, but what she said is ever since she was able to become a part of the RISE program, that everything in life has gotten better. That's what she said. She said everything has just gotten better because of exactly what Sandra just described.
Steve, did you ask any of the participants here about mentorship or having a mentor, and is the mentor still involved through the college process as they might have been when they had guardians when they were in care?
We didn't ask them directly, but we definitely gave them opportunity to share about things that are going well. And we'll get to those answers in a few slides. But that's a good thing for us to ask in the future. I think also, if anyone here knows about the results of the statewide Florida does a statewide survey. The United survey, I think, asks about mentorship. And I personally have been surprised at the percent of students who say that they do still have, an adult who's involved with them. And we do have now the EGAL program, which is an effort that Educate Tomorrow has been making with the Guardian Ad Litem program to help people who are interested in being guardians beyond that age 18, like you have been. Kind of took your example and trying to institutionalize that around the state. So thank you for reminding me about that.
When I look at
Go
the
ahead.
side, sorry, just really quickly, looking at the other side of the data of what somewhat / not at all satisfied, one of my students comes to mind who is working 2 jobs right now. They're not making enough money to pay for rent. They feel like they don't have enough time in the day. And when I see this data right here, all of that is intertwined regarding her finances and her level of anxiety, regarding not knowing where she's going to live next year, or how to pay for things. So I think how Sandra said the other side, as far as the education being intertwined with all of those things, we can see it on the flip side as well, how those other things are impacting their mental health, their finances, their time, and then just their overall satisfaction as they're trying to navigate through the day-to-day.
That's a great point. Thank you, Jasmine. And Jasmine's going to share a little bit more later on with us. She's our special guest speaker, as well as Ms. Sandra Obas. Anybody else?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, hi, everyone. This is Jamie with Cetera over in the Tampa Bay area. I just think that this, the information on this slide is a really good representation of what we're seeing from the young people that we're interacting with, where there's still a lot of difficulty and sometimes bordering crisis around money, and how pervasively that actually does impact education, impacts housing, impacts well-being overall, of course. And so this data is not surprising, and I think just another reinforcement of the work yet to do in helping young people stabilize their finances, getting resources to stabilize their finances.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bennett. If we have any young people on the call, I would definitely like to hear from you. This slide is telling. I mean, the percentages are high. Financing 76%. And I appreciate what Jasmine said about the interaction of these things, because you could sit with a person, right? And they can say, well, I'm anxious. And you can literally go down this list, right, Sandra? and say, about which one of these things? And your questions are based on research. You're not just pulling ideas out of a hat. You are asking them questions, and anybody on this call who can talk to the students are asking them questions based on research. So that's why we're doing this.
Hi, sorry for coming in late. And my camera is not on because my computer acts up when I have my camera on. My name is Selena. I currently attend FGCU. I just came in, I guess, at the good time. Sorry for being late, but
No problem.
From looking at the screen, it does say with since we're talking about finances, one thing that I feel these schools need to communicate better is having to pay to do laundry. That's a really big thing, especially if you're on, say, the DCF waiver, but you don't get PES or extended foster care. It's either the only thing that you're relying on is the money that you get from your job, or maybe you just want to focus on school. So you don't even have a job. I didn't know I had to pay for laundry until when I transferred here. And it says nothing about having to pay for laundry on the FGCU website. Thankfully, with me, I'm able to manage my finances. But of course, there's others that might not. And not only that, you might not be able to say you're somewhat okay, financially okay, but since it's like a public laundry unit for everyone on campus, or at least in the dorm area that you're living at, they tend to always shut down or they don't properly wash your clothing. So what I did was I drove 30 minutes to see a mentor of mine so I could do laundry at his place. And there's others like me that don't have that. So yeah, I think that's a big thing. Like, especially like when I was at my community college, we were really fortunate enough, not only that we had our own, like, in each dorm had their own in-unit washer and dryer, but we didn't have to pay for it. So that was helpful. I just think it's crazy how we're already paying for like laundry, let alone, even though thankfully we're not paying for school because the DCF waiver covers it, but there is extra, like overall school is expensive besides, you know, the tuition. Why do I have to pay to do my laundry? So, and funny enough, that same mentor texted me this picture the other day saying that about, I think somewhere in California, after 2 California schools offered a laundry service to low income students who showed up for class, the students attendance went up 93%. So yeah, I just wanted to comment on the laundry situation. But then also, for example, this is just my own personal experience. I can't speak for everyone that's on this same assistance. Overall, I did have some barriers with AOK scholars, but at the same time though, in ways I do understand how they have the requirements and everything, but like, you can't join AOK until you have a GPA. Of course, with these incoming freshmen, they're not going to have a GPA. And in order to succeed academically, you got to have your textbooks, whether it's renting them or you have to actually buy the textbook. That I feel like that's a barrier within itself too, because the whole point of AOK is, you know, being able to succeed in college. But if you're not able to have like the GPA requirement they're asking, it's most likely because you're not doing well academically, and part of that reason could be because of textbooks.
Good points. Very good point.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Selena.
Yeah, of course. And then I know this is of course a whole different area too, but I've heard in general stories that students that are on the post-secondary education support services program, for whatever reason, they're, I guess since they were never able to, like, I guess, manage money or whatever the case is before they're in PES, they just blow it off in one weekend. And that's of course it's its own issue, but something that I am gonna try to work with the foster care liaison at my school, especially since I'm actually doing my internship with him.
That's great.
Thank you.
Hoover,
Thank you.
I'm so excited to hear that.
I had to advocate for that because
That's awesome.
because the social work program, you could only do internship somewhere if they have a BSW or MSW like graduate. And I just had to educate the internship coordinator that, hey, like, that I should do my internship here, and just explain the reasons of why I need to do it. And she was very impressed. So yeah. But something I would like to do, I don't know if I'm gonna do how I'm gonna do this, whether it's also gonna be doing through my internship, or it's also going to be like a side thing that I do like on my own time. But like, I think it would be really great, especially because of the increase of the PES stipend, to actually like be, of course it'd be kind of hard to do hands-on if it's virtual, but to do like a visual aid of using me as an example, and these are the payments I have to do, such as, you know, my car payment, my insurance, X, Y, and Z.
No,
And
that's
then
a great idea.
I feel like that would be really helpful, just because like I understand with some of the stuff that they're doing with they're gonna pay they, as in like the caseworker or someone in the PES program, would be the one like paying directly whatever the youth need to pay first, and then the rest goes to them. I can understand how, that could be, a bit better and everything, but at the same time, like, it'd still be nice to help for like, here, since you already know this is set in stone, unlike a job that sometimes, especially if you're being paid by the hour, that, the money might fluctuate, but with a stipend, that's like a set in stone type of thing. So I think of having something like a workshop or something to like
Yeah,
discuss
yeah.
that would be very helpful.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I don't know if someone's with DCF still with us, but or anybody who could comment on, somebody from the community-based care organizations. The students are now receiving what, a couple $100 more a month? Does anybody
So
have any thoughts?
it was, what was it, 1256, and now it's 1720.
Wow. So yeah, can somebody talk about that in terms of how they're being helped? James?
Well, what do you mean as far as how they're being helped, Steve?
Well, what I meant, well, specifically like what Selena was talking about, $500 more a month. Does anybody in the community at CBCs or DCF have any thoughts about how students can be helped, supported in managing that money, or even the specific thing she said? Some CBCs not giving them all the 500, they're paying things directly.
So, yeah, so it's just that the way the money goes out could be a little bit dependent on CBCs or each young person's specific situation. Because, and I can't speak to anything that's about to come out yet, because Eric would know better than I would. But young people can be given the entire amount once they're able to demonstrate that they're capable of managing their own finances. But a lot of the, like when I was at FSS, we direct paid rent and gave the remainder to the young person directly. So, but each CBC kind of does a little different. Some write checks, some have cards that it's put on for the young people. It's kind of, a little bit different, but the money does get to their hands for sure. And then now, in emergency circumstances, some of those young people can also qualify for aftercare assistance as well while they're in the PES program, I believe.
Thank you. And James, let's take, I want to take a moment right now to thank the state of Florida, because the reality is that the legislature passed laws that increased by $500 what these students are getting. So you see on the screen now, in what ways, if at all, can your school or community help you at this time? Money, grants, financial aid, rental assistance, reverse fees, scholarships. The state did this. The state is now giving $500 more to all these students every month. And so I think when all is said and done, it's a great encouragement to me to be here in the state of Florida and to see that it's kind of like these students have been heard.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, it is well overdue. We've been asking for something like this almost since I've been in Florida, and there's never been an increase. So,
That's a huge increase.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty cool. I'm glad it's happened. It's a small piece of the pie, but I'm glad it happened.
yeah. Okay, well, thank you for your participation, James, and everyone who's made comments. At this time, I would love to turn it over to Jasmine Moore. Were you planning on talking about what makes you feel good about your life as well, Jasmine? Because I have your picture here with what would you change about your life, if anything?
I could do whichever you prefer. I
Okay,
can do both. I can review both.
do both. Well, you want to start with what
Uh-oh,
would
did
you
he
change?
freeze?
Oh,
Or is it just me?
Somebody needs to get Steve a hotspot.
No,
yeah,
he's frozen.
my computer tells me I'm unstable.
Oh,
Oh,
he's back.
okay, there you are.
Okay, you want to start with the what makes you feel good or what you change?
Let's start with what makes you feel good about life.
Okay, there it is.
Uh-oh. Steve, the PowerPoint went away. Okay, I have it pulled up here, so while he does that, I'll just kind of go into that a little bit. So some of this information we already touched based on a little bit regarding family and friends and good fortune, and thinking about what is motivating these students to invest in themselves and their education and to pursue a degree and create a quality of life that is better for them, not only as graduates, but also thinking about their future and who they consider to be a part of their family. So family and friends, without a surprise, is up there. Being invested in what they're doing, being able to share their success with people. So whether that's their campus coaches or their peers or a sibling, those kind of relationships, as we've touched base on time and again, are really important to our youth. A lot of our students too in the post-COVID world are excited that, okay, we got through this huge community trauma that was COVID, and we're still going through that, and how they can move and continue forward towards their goals. So still feeling alive, having people who support them, regardless of how low they get. And I think during COVID, during the quarantine and height of COVID, that proved a time where students realized that they still have people in their corner through the campus coaches and community partners and their peers. And I'm sure Sandra saw this a lot as well, being a mental health professional, just highlighting that mental well-being and knowing that they need that type of support. The other thing that students highlighted that made them feel good about their life was good fortune. So again, tied into that education and working and preparing for graduation. Money and security is very important because they know that that will help give them the lifestyle that they want and that security after graduation. Other things that people stated were all the things that I have in my life versus how people back home have it. So maybe thinking about their upbringing or their community that they're coming from, and how they want to improve that and have social mobility. Other things like having air to breathe and being granted another day to create the life that they desire. Just thankful for living because not everyone gets the chance. I have things that I have always wanted thanks to my job and the hard work of my mom. Waking up every day is a blessing. So the fact that I get the chance to keep pushing is enough. So these again are intrinsic motivators that are really driving our students day to day to succeed and achieve their goals. Yes, and as Dr. Blake said, the resiliency. Some of my students are so positive with just like the air they breathe, as the slide says. Yes, our students are incredibly resilient. So that definitely has an impact on how they perceive things. So having opportunities, like students feeling like they're doing their best, having another opportunity to try again, again, touching base on that resilience and their lived life experiences. The ability to wake up and thank God, being myself, doing what I do to what I love to do in life, seeing another day as a chance to seize an opportunity. Huge one, being able to return to school and having a job again. Again, touching on that height of COVID and when we were very remote and not having a lot of interaction. A lot of my students really crave that in-person interaction and just communication with their community. Some of the other things that they highlighted, things that make them feel good, are their accomplishments. So knowing that they're approaching graduation, the way that they persevere through any tough situation, that's definitely a highlight of the students that we work with. The fact that they are achieving a goal that neither of my parents got to do. I think we can all say we see that a lot with our students, especially our first generation students who are just very, very proud of their accomplishments and changing that narrative. And then, so what would you change about your life, if anything? Some people said everything. Here's my mental health and being more present, my body personality, my attitude, how I'm doing in life right now. I would change feeling so exhausted all the time, take time to take care of myself more financially, being able to spend more time with my family, stop being so afraid to ask for help with my mental health. So this is really interesting to see because a few slides ago that was it 49% that said maybe. I think that this really highlights the need that students are wanting to invest and take care of their mental health, and trying to figure out what stigma or what roadblock is there that's preventing them from doing so. And then last, the money, which isn't surprising. More money skills, financial burdens, overcoming financial situations. So all of this is important just to review because, everyone on this call is working with our youth to help them in some way, shape, or form achieve their goals, whether it's looking at their holistic development like we do at Educate Tomorrow, or if you are a key component of it. And just hearing straight from our students, like what it is that's a burden on them and what it is that they're proud of, I think can help shape how we approach our students and helping them overcome some of these barriers, and then also celebrating their successes. And so I would love to hear, what everyone else thinks. If anything you heard here was a surprise, or if you think this is reflective of the work that you do with your students.
What do you all think about these answers?
I'm reading this one and I'm concerned, like, I'm just thinking if the student were to come to me, like how it would help them. Where under self, it says, have more time to do the things I love and make me who I am, the make me who I am part. I guess it's a time management thing, but like some of these are just really deep responses. And it seems like these are things that they've been like really pensive about. Like that's just not something that just, you just scroll down. It's really interesting.
Yeah, the reason that I asked Jasmine to present here is that, and Jasmine, feel free to let us know a little bit about the appreciative advising model, and the component that it starts off with their dreams. And I think you do have these kind of conversations, right?
And also, Dr. Bennett also has a really cool coaching model that Educate Tomorrow actually helped the campus coaches go through training. So in addition to appreciative advising, maybe Dr. Bennett can talk about the coaching model too.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Blake. Yeah, so I think coaching and appreciative advising definitely overlap with one another. And so there's a lot of common strategies. And I think that both are able to tackle some of the things, especially like on the left-hand side, the stuff about self. The other reflection I'm having, and with both slides that you presented, Jasmine, is the previous one around what was going well or what I wouldn't change. The fact that relationships was really showing up, like supportive relationships, gives me a lot of hope when I look at the stuff on this slide. And I think we know from research, we know from our own work, anecdotal, all of us on this call know that relationships really are the anchor to long-term outcomes, and that the stuff that we see on this slide is a big deal. We don't want to ignore it. And the relationships can help mitigate some of these things over time. And so, so I think there's a lot of hope. I think us being present and using the good tools in our toolbox, like coaching tools, appreciative advising tools, transformational relationship tools, that we can continue to chip away at this.
Thank you so much. Here's some things. I like the fact that, a good number of people said nothing, that they would not change anything, considering the young people that we work with and the challenges they have. So 4 simply said nothing. Others said nothing, everything is for a reason. Actually nothing, because where I was last year is not where I am today. And then nothing at all, I can only continue to improve. So I appreciate the word hope that you used, Dr. Bennett, right? For us to really be able to look at all of these things, and this is available to all of you. I've already posted this under in positivepathwaysflorida.org. You go under the About, and then you can go down to webinars and surveys, and this is available for you. So please feel free to spend time looking at this in your own time. So one last opportunity, as we have 3 minutes left for questions and answers, summaries, your thoughts, please either put in the chat or say now if you think that this was of value to you, and if so, in what ways, and how we can improve this type of webinar. Thoughts? Thank you, Dr. Blake, for all your help with this, and for Sandra and Jasmine as well.
Hi, so I jumped in late. This might have already been shared, but I'm just wondering if there is going to be a way for us to get these results either in the PowerPoint or in another document that we can use for our own work, our own sharing and things like that.
Of course, no, it's there. It's already posted.
Oh,
So
awesome.
go to
Fabulous.
Positive Pathways Florida, and then go to the tab that says About. And then on the bottom of that list, there's surveys as well as webinars. You can click on either one of those and not just see these results, but see past results.
Beautiful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Dr. Rios,
Yes.
James Minter asked, have any of the colleges created their own youth advisory board? So I have Rising Scholars. They're not a youth advisory board. Basically, at this point, we're just a group chat. And I invite them everywhere. But Dr. Bennett created a wisdom council, and 3 of my Rising Scholars are on that wisdom council and they inform our work. So maybe, Jamie, do you want to talk about that too? Sorry, I keep calling on you. But.
That's okay. I'm so excited about the Wisdom Council, so I will talk about it whenever I can. So we just launched this year. We got a small grant to support an inaugural cohort of young people with foster care experience in the Tampa Bay area. And so we have 4 young adults who are all college students, and they are joining together twice a month to talk about really, I'm kind of in advising mode with them. They are in control of what the group ends up looking like and the work that they do. And so they will be advising some of the work, etc. And they have some really awesome ideas about doing some advocacy in the community as well. So we'll be limited to the Tampa Bay community just because that's the scope of our work. Yeah, so stay tuned. I will keep the Positive Pathways Network updated on the work that group is doing and opportunities for other youth to join in the future. They do receive an honorarium and are going to be receiving professional development, things like we're doing headshots and getting bio courses ready to like help them create bios and resume support. So we've got a lot of things in the wings kind of ready for that group, but we are really hoping to just support them as they do what they think is the best thing to do in our community related to post-secondary ed, housing, and really youth voice. So we're really excited about it.
Thank you so much. And it is 11 o'clock. I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. You've stayed with us the whole hour and a half. I really appreciate that. So we're done with the seminar. If you rub it, the webinar, if you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to email us. You can see how you can reach us there. Dr. Blake, if you have any closing words, thank you for your efforts.
I just wanted to say thank you for being here this morning.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week. All right, see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.